is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back with some Resident Evil 3 Remake gameplay for you. And today, guys, I got a seemingly lengthy video for you because this is a video that I was contemplating for the last, I guess few weeks whether I should make it or not. And it's going to open up a can of worms. I was asking myself, should I really open up this can of worms? But you know what? Damn it, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it. And I realize that a lot of people are probably not going to agree with me. And that's fine. I have no problem being disagreed with. Just let me know in the comment section how you really feel. As long as you're just being completely honest and not really biased or just, regurgitating what other people say. Because I feel like a lot of people just don't think for themselves nowadays. They just listen to whatever the popular opinion is. But so what is it that I'm here to discuss about? And honestly, it's basically because of a scene I saw. I haven't seen the whole movie, but a scene in Death Island. I've seen a few sequences, and this one sequence I saw, I liked this sequence. I think it was great, but I've read a few people saying how much they think the sequence ruined a certain somebody and how, yada, 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 it's the worst thing ever. And I just kept thinking to myself, what in the world? And it kind of just made me contemplate making this video. But what is the topic, you may be asking, you're wondering? That topic is this, alright? I'm here to talk about why I believe Jill Valentine in the Resident Evil games is by far, unanimously, not even close, the most over-criticized, unfairly judged character in the entire franchise by, like, a mile. And if I did have a number two, it'd probably be Claire, but I'm going to focus on Jill here. And it's absolutely criminal to me just how hypocritical people are when it comes to Jill, and how I just feel like it doesn't matter what they do with Jill in the games or the movie. It's like nobody is ever satisfied or happy. It's just they just want to complain all day. And I get you might not like some things, but it's like it just feels like it doesn't matter what they do. People are just going to overly criticize Jill no matter what it is. From how she looks, what she wears, how she sounds, what she says, what she does, where she goes. It doesn't matter. And it's funny because on New Year's Eve last year, I made a video, why does Capcom seemingly hate Jill and Claire? And I still stand by that video to this day if you want to check it out. But someone made a comment about that video, and it stands so true today. And, that person, they hit the nail so hard in the head, the nail went through the board. But basically they said, I think the real reason why Capcom doesn't include Jill or Claire for that matter is just because no matter what they would do with the character, people are just going to never be satisfied because there's an unhealthy amount of just over-critiquing when it comes to these two characters. Like, Leon and Chris, they've had so many changes over the years, but it's like you'll hear a little noise, but never to the point where it's like people are just questioning their existence and, they're not the same character. They're completely different. They're something devoid of logic and reasoning, and I'm just like, no one says anything about that, but I mean, oh my god, Jill, wears the wrong outfit. Oh my god, it's a completely different character. So, basically, let's start from the beginning till I lead up to the whole Death Island thing, but let's start with Resident Evil 3 Remake. And, that already gets a reaction saying it, but I'll be the first one to say this right now. I do not hate Resident Evil 3 Remake nowhere near amount that most people do. Now, yes, could it have been a better remake? Absolutely. I'll say it's an excellent, solid game, but could have been a better remake. Would it probably be on the low end of the other remakes in Resident Evil? Yes, it could have been a lot better. And if you know the context situation, the game obviously was rushed. It wasn't given the amount of time as the other remakes, and it clearly shows. If it was given maybe an extra year and not had that extra mode, it would probably been a lot better than it was. I agree with that, and I still enjoy and like playing the game. But one thing I've never understood, and I've always disagreed with this, when people say that Jill herself in Remake 3 is a completely different character compared to her original incarnation. Like, they're not the same character. I will say you are correct. They are not 100% the same character, but they're implying that, like, they're two, like, different people. Like, in terms of, like, this isn't Jill we're playing or seeing on the screen right now. This is like, I don't know, a scroll or something. Like, this is a different person. And I'm like, okay, why do you really think that way? And basically, they're sitting there saying that, like, this person is not the original Jill. Because the original Jill is nice, happy, polite, and never does anything mean or malicious. And this Jill is a lot angrier. She's basically a biatch, and she hates people. I've even heard people say, "Oh, she hates men." She's just a complete a-hole, and I'm just like, where is this coming from again? Like, what came to this whole resolution here? And it basically comes down to the fact that, like, people think, well, they cuss a lot more. Well, to be fair, in the remakes, they all kind of cuss a little bit more, so you gotta be fair to all the other characters. And I'm not one of those guys that gets all mad about cussing or something like that. I mean, people blow that out of proportion. Yes, do they curse a lot? Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, it's not a big deal to me. I really don't care. Like, things I complain about in Resident Evil game, cursing is not really high on the list. But people act like that Jill is basically Joe Pesci from one of those, or like from Casino or Goodfellas or something like that, like cursing like 100 times the F word in like a 1 minute span. And yet, ironically, people love those movies and roles by Joe Pesci. But of course, Jill Font, absolutely not, because why not? Why not? I'm not here to argue about it. I don't really personally care. Whatever. When you're in those moments, if I was in those moments, I'd be saying a lot of cursing. But regardless, whatever. I don't care. I'm not here about cursing. So a lot of people say that Jill is just so much more like different because she isn't the same after, like, Resident Evil 1 or original Resident Evil Nemesis stuff. And yes, I do agree, but I agree for the betterment of it. Like, one thing I like about these remakes, and I don't think it's enough credit, is a lot of the characters are they have a lot more depth to them. They're not these generic characters that just kind of going through the motions. You don't have that, like, Resident Evil 1 Chris vibes with these characters. You have characters that are living, breathing characters that have a lot of depth between them and reasons why they're that way. I mean, like, seriously, put yourself in Jill's shoes. Like, how else are you going to react when all this is coming for you at the same time and no time to chance to breathe or think about it? You're going to be very on-kiltered and stuff, but people think, like, hey, like, I'll leave it to this way. If you want to say, oh, I'm just protecting, you just accept anything. I'll give you a prime example. Resident Evil 4 is my all-time favorite video game, by the way, in case you didn't know. Leon was the first time I ever encountered Leon, the original Resident Evil 4. I never played any of the Resident Evils. 4 was the first one I ever played, the original one. When I played Resident Evil 4, I never thought Leon was a guy that went through a traumatic incident or went through a bunch of BS. I just thought he was a cool guy cracking one-liners. There's no really depth to him. So when I found out what happened originally in Resident Evil 2, I'm like, damn, it's like, that character, Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4, Leon, the original, that feels like maybe close to two different characters. They were still the same, but they didn't feel like the same character. That was more of a difference than anything else, but still, no one really complained too much. There were complaints, but not like this with Jill, but, that was something that was different. That's why I like the remakes, Leon, a lot more than the original one, because it feels like a character that went through a traumatic incident, that, like, he still has his self, his witty one-liners, trying to be funny and stuff, but he feels like a guy that transitioned from RE2 remake to RE4 remake, and I really like his depth in that. And I really like how they showed that, what he went from 2 molded him to what eventually happens in 4, and so on and so forth. I really enjoyed that. I like that, and once again, people seem to randomly like those changes with Leon, but when it comes to Jill, it's just like, nah, she's got to be the same old person that has no growing or whatnot. She's got to be that same, happy, generic, whatever you want to call it. It's like, no, when you go through a traumatic incident, you change. She's still who she is at her core. She's still trying to help people. Doesn't want anyone to die, but you act like she's going to be that same person when she first entered the mansion. Like, no, she's going to be different. But the thing that really gets on my nerves is when people say in this game that Jill is not the same character and that she's an unlikable, like, prick. That she's basically a cunt, and that I've even heard people say that, like, she hates, like, men for some reason. I don't know what that means. Like, yeah, she hates men so much, that's why she's routinely teaming up with groups majority men and stuff like that. That doesn't make any sense, not to mention her partner, Chris. Like, why would, like, where is this coming from? But based on this game, and why people say that is they think, oh, well, Jill, it comes down to how she met Carlos. She treats Carlos like crap. Why does she treat that nice man Carlos like a piece of crap? And I'm sitting there thinking, when does this happen again? Because when I played 3 Remake, I liked Jill and Carlos's chemistry with each other. I really did. I was even questioning, man, Jill Carlos or Jill Chris, which one is a better tag team and stuff, because I wish to see more Carlos in the future. But I was like, when does this happen again? And they're basically going back to when she first met Carlos, and that, oh my gosh, she's overly hostile to him. Like, he was trying to help. Like, why was she acting that way? And that's where I just realized this huge, like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, what are you talking about? But since no one wants to address this, let's just analyze it step by step, okay? Jill Valentine, a few months prior, before 3, survived the Arklay mansion, like the Spencer mansion. She survived the whole mansion incident. And anyone surviving an incident is probably going to be scarred for life. I know I would be. If I survived that, man, I would count my blessings and then just move away from that line of work forever, because I don't ever want to deal with that again. But, she survives it, and she goes back with the rest of the Stars member to survive, and was trying to confront the RPD about, like, hey, what's going on? We found out all this stuff. Umbrella is responsible for this. You guys might be responsible for this. Obviously, the stuff with Wesker, like, she's trying to connect the dots, and obviously gets suspended for that and gets put on leave. And as you said in the beginning of this game, you kind of, in that sense, like, you're really paranoid. You got people watching you. The only person who needs to be on your side is Brad. And everyone's thinking you're crazy. They're watching you. Who knows? Maybe they're trying to eliminate you. You're taking a bunch of pills. Her state of mind is all over the place. Even the hallucinations of her possibly turning into the undead. Like, she's got a really messed up mind state right now, and rightfully so. Like, anyone who went through all that stuff. Maybe a little survivor's guilt. Like, I mean, come on now. Put yourself in her shoes. I know Jill's got some big shoes to fill, and I don't know if any one of us is ever going to fill it, but seriously, put yourself in her shoes. How do you think she feels? And then she's going to question everything, rightfully so. So, and then, to make matters worse, then you have the Nemesis pop out of nowhere, basically hunting her down, trying to kill her no matter what. It's seemingly an unkillable force of nature coming after her, and basically killing any means of her to escape. And so, just when it seems like it's going to be over, then this random man, equipped with, rocket launcher, the quad launcher, as well as some assault rifle weaponry, comes and saves you, and, you get out of it. And then you start talking to him and saying, I'm here for survivors, and I work for Umbrella. What are you going to think when you hear that? What are you honestly going to think? You're going to be happy with, okay, you saved me, so it doesn't really matter. Or two, like any person who went through what Jill thought, any logical person, be like, are you kidding me? Like, are you really kidding me? Like, are you effing kidding me? Like, seriously? As he said, you guys are people that cause all this stuff. Like, duh. Like, why would I trust you guys? Like, seriously? And not to mention you guys are armed to the teeth. And not to mention, he leads her to meet some other Umbrella people on the train, Mikhail, and, and they're talking about, we want to save people. And knowing what Jill knows, and not to mention, why would she openly trust anyone, especially if they work for Umbrella, especially after what she went for in the mansion, knowing that her leader of the squad, Wesker, turned out to be the person he is, one of the most evilest people in the Resident Evil universe. So, she has every right to be paranoid and not trustworthy. Yes, we know that Carlos and, Mikhail are not bad people, but she doesn't know that. Put herself in her shoes. If you were that character, you'd be doing the same damn thing, questioning it, not trusting it. It's not her being mean to him. It's just her keeping it at arm's length, like, I don't trust you. And yes, she agrees to help out, but obviously to help out the people, not them. Obviously, over time, she learns that not everybody is bad, and a lot of them are just working on not knowing what, the people up top are doing, but she has every right to be that way. But here's the funny part about all this. This is the part that makes me think how hypocritical this really is. So if you still want to stand on the hill and say, oh, Jill was completely unreasonable and really, really mean to Carlos and how she was introduced to him and stuff, that's fine if you want to be that way. But if you're going to say that about Jill, then I guess you got to say that about Leon. Oh, you don't know what I'm talking about? A game that came out earlier this year, the latest Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 4 remake, where basically Leon encounters Luis, someone who, helps him out a little bit at a time, then he leaves off, and then Hunnigan does a background check on him and finds out that he used to work for Umbrella, and saying that, basically Leon says he should have left him in that bag to rot and die, and basically interrogates him, holds him to the wall, and basically questions, who he is, and doesn't trust him the entire game, and really only kind of gets along with him and accepts him for eventually trying to help out people, really kind of at the end of his life, unfortunately. But the point is, and I'm not trying to question Leon for doing it, he's right to question him and be a little bit paranoid because of what he went through. But the point I'm trying to make here is that why is it that when Leon does pretty much similar things, that, hell, I can say even more egregious things against Luis than what Jill ever did to Carlos. I mean, Jill wasn't holding Carlos against the wall and constantly questioning, who he's working for and constantly belittling him. When a lot of times, Luis was just trying to lighten the mood because, I'm sorry, Leon, but you had a large metal rod shoved up your ass in this game. And I get it. And I love their dynamic. But it's similar to that. Like, I like Luis and Leon's dynamic in this game. Just like I like Carlos and Jill's dynamic in Resident Evil 3. But the part I'm trying to get to is just like, you hear nobody saying, oh, Leon mistreated Luis. Like, he was very aggressive and mean to him. No, because, when Leon does anything, it's perfectly fine. And listen, I love Leon. He's my second favorite Resident Evil character. Jill's my third. But it's just kind of funny to me how, like, when it comes to Leon, because he is the most popular Resident Evil character, he can do basically anything. Like, he can have so many different changes. He can basically do anything. And it's like, you barely hear anybody say a word. But when it comes to Jill, I mean, as I said before, she wears the wrong thing, let alone what she says or does. It's like, it's absolutely taboo. And then we're questioning, they're not the same character. They've ruined the character and blah, 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 blah. And Leon and Chris have gone over so many changes in their career. And both of them, in terms of the, backlash with their changes combined, don't even equal like 5% of what Jill has just by simply appearing, for God's sake. I mean, look at when she appeared in Death Island trailer. You figure people would be happy, but no, everyone's just complaining and whining. Oh, it's not this, it's not that, it's not. It's like, dude, I'm happy to see the character again. Like, and everyone's just crying. Oh, that's not the perfect embodiment. I mean, holy crap! And like the other characters, like Leon and Chris, can basically do anything. They can change multiple times, have different looks, and anything else. And I mean, hell. There's more backlash for Jill just doing anything nowadays than there ever was for, like, Resident Evil 7 Chris. Because a lot of people just couldn't recognize him there, and that's saying something, because I'll be honest, I didn't recognize him until they said his name at the end. There's a lot more backlash, but the point I'm trying to make here is that Leon, I just feel like, gets so much, like, bias protection from anybody, and Jill just gets so much bias, like, just hate for everything. It's just like the exact opposite. Because here's my theory, because I know there's going to be someone in the comment section, well, it's not the same situation, Leon with Luis and Jill with Carlos, not 100% the same situation. And yes, I agree, but how much you want to bet if we swap the scenarios, right? And Jill was in Leon's place in RE4 with how Leon treated Luis, and Leon was in Jill's place in RE3 with how Jill treated Carlos. How much you want to bet that no one say anything about what Leon did in that one, and then everyone be still complaining about Jill and RE4 if she treated Luis the way Leon actually did? Like, it's just, it's weird, but it's like, Jill can't, I mean, she's damned if she does, she's damned if she don't. You don't want her to have any type of, like, do anything. It's like she can't even remotely get mad in situations where it makes perfect sense. But yet, if she just did nothing and just, like, responded normal, like, yeah, here's Carlos, he helped me, okay, I love him and stuff like that, I'll follow him. Then you just be like complaining, oh, well, she's just boring and generic and really naive. It's like, it doesn't matter what she does, you're just going to complain no matter what it is she does, and she can't win for losing. As I said, I like both of their interactions, both these two dynamics, and both 3 and 4, I think they're really good, and I think they both make sense, but unfortunately one gets judged into the ground thinking, oh, the character's a completely different character, and the other one is basically, oh, it's just, it's great, it's great development, it's just great moments and stuff. And yet, if I flip-flop them, it'd still be the same complaints for, each other and stuff. It's just, it makes no sense. It's just incredibly biased and uninformed. But now I get to the part where I was talking about earlier in terms of, like, what eventually led me to doing this video in the first place, and that was the Death Island. And I have yet to see the entire thing. I've only seen a few sequences, but it's one sequence I really liked, and if you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And as I said, it comes out next week, so I will get to a review eventually of it. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the sequence where Jill and Chris talk to each other at the shooting range, I like this sequence. It's really good, and kind of gives me what I've always wanted if they were going to bring back Jill, and that's addressing the events from, Resident Evil 5. Because obviously one of the big things with Resident Evil, with Jill, is that people want to see, like, how she overcame all that, what she's doing in that time frame. Now, obviously, Death Island takes place 6 years after Resident Evil 5. The first time Jill has been seen in post-Resident Evil 5, so it was a big moment. So basically, the somewhat context, Jill earlier went into a house and kind of rushed in and tried to see if there's any survivors and whatnot. And Chris told her to wait. Was like, there might be survivors in there. I'm not going to wait. I'm going to go in there, and yada yada yada. So later on, Chris learns from Rebecca that like Jill holds herself accountable. Like nobody holds Jill accountable for what happened in Resident Evil 5 except for Jill herself. She holds herself accountable. She feels bad for what happened. So Chris, obviously being a good person, going in there and trying to make sure Jill's all right, and basically saying like, I'm taking you off the case because I feel like, you're not in the right frame of mind. And Jill says, you can't take me off this case. I'm ready. I want to get out because she's been held, for 6 years rehabilitating, and that kind of would probably mess up a lot of people being out that long. She wants to get back in the field and wants to go back to saving people from bioterrorists. Something she's dedicated her life for. And Chris makes a. By the way, I like the fact that Chris did reference peers in this conversation, which is really good. I love that callback. But he's basically saying, hey, I get what you did. I probably do the same thing too. But, I don't want us to be numb to the point where all we are is just there to sacrifice our lives to save people. I want us to be more than that. Because obviously he doesn't want to see Jill do what she did again in Resident Evil 5. But obviously, if you think about it that way, if she didn't do that, well, who knows what would happen? They'd probably both be dead. But the point I'm trying to make here is that Jill's just saying, I'm not going to stop saving people, and Chris doesn't just want her to throw her life away. So I get both sides of the coin, but obviously a certain group on the internet, that lovely place, basically tries to make the case that, oh my goodness, Jill is just a complete a-hole to Chris. He craps on Piers, doesn't care about, his death and all, and that she hates Chris. That's where I think I heard, like, oh, she hates men and stuff like that. I'm like, where did you get this from this conversation? Because they have a little conflict here. I mean, what did you want Jill to do? Come back all happy and excited? She's obviously going to have a lot of time to get through this stuff, and she's obviously been hardened by what happened to her. And then I heard something, and this is probably really what made me make this video. Oh, well, Jill has no reason to be upset about anything. She didn't go through that much. She hasn't gone through nowhere near what Chris and Leon have in terms of trauma and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, please tell me you've never played Resident Evil before without telling me you never played Resident Evil before. Like, you gotta be joking. No, they're like dead serious. I'm like, dude, Jill Valentine, and they're like, oh, she was just brainwashed in 5. It's not that big of a deal. Like, no, it was a lot more to being brainwashed. In case you don't know, Jill Valentine inadvertently almost led to the end of the world. Because people forget this, it was her antibodies, because of the virus she was infected with back in 3, that basically ultimately saved her time, but was used to perfect the Ouroboros virus. So yeah, all the people infected by the Ouroboros virus, whether infected, killed, or even killed when she was out and about moving, are all on her conscience. Because remember, she was aware of all this stuff going down at the same time. Not to mention working for the very thing she swore to take down. I mean, so we're talking hundreds of thousands, God knows how many people died and would have died if not for the ending of Resident Evil 5 putting Ouroboros on the ground for good. But yeah, that's all on her conscience. No other Resident Evil character can say that. Not even close. Like, but no, that's not a big deal. And then they go on to say, well, at the end of Resident Evil 5, they were happy. Yeah, they were happy because they were relieved it was over. That they could actually go back to their semblance of a life and not having to force to work for the most evilest man in the world. Yeah, not to mention, when she finally broke free of her control, it was at the cusp of nearly killing the man that she basically gave up her life to save in the first place. But yeah, that wouldn't, mess up anybody. And then they go on to say, well, you know what? They wrote an email in between, 5 and Death Island that basically said that they were fine and couldn't wait to get back in action. Because, yeah, guys, did you know that in life, if you hadn't seen someone in 6 years and they wrote an email, that means they're in a great state of mind. Because that's all you need to know to make sure someone's all right is one email. I have people I see every day in my life, and I'm worried about their state of mind every single time I see them. But yeah, an email in 6 years, that means, well, everything's perfectly fine. So there's no way they could ever be like mad or hardened about anything. And not to mention, why would you want Jill to come back with no consequences at all? Like, you want Jill to come back and be this happy, what's she going to come back? But hey, Chris, I'm back in the field. We're going to have fun. We're going to shoot some infected and have a good old time. High five, or we're going to be happy and with no semblance of basically what's going on. Basically, you're just going to be like what Leon was in the original Resident Evil 4, or you're going to have somebody that you can tell has been through a lot of crap. Once again, it's not Jill being this way because she's rude. It's Jill, like, trying to overcome what she went through. She doesn't want to see people die and be infected. It pains her. It sees that. And when, obviously Chris is looking out for her. He's trying to be a good person. And it's not Jill being, mean or nasty to Chris because she don't like Chris. It's just that she's tired of seeing it. Even after all these years, she's tired of seeing, bioterrorism still, running rampantly and people still doing this. And she's always trying to save people. And it's funny because the villain does make a good point of this. I kind of laughed at it where it's like, he was basically saying, like, why all the main characters are, like, pawns to everything, and how, like, Jill's always sacrificing herself for others, and Chris is always getting his teammates killed, which, inadvertently is true in a way. But, like, the point is, like, they all have their demons, and I think that's what makes it so compelling to me, why I love these characters, and why I love these remakes, is we see these characters being more than just generic, cookie cutter things. They're a lot more dynamic than that. And it's not that I don't like the originals. I do. We wouldn't have these characters without the originals. I love the originals, but I'm tired of hearing this. Oh, Jill is not the same person. Like she's a scroll or something. No, Jill Valentine in Resident Evil 1 is the same as Jill in Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 3 Remake, Resident Evil 5, and in Death Island and Revelations 1. Like she's the same character. Are there differences about her? Yes, because of stuff that's happened. She's not going to remain the same thing. I mean, look at your own life. I mean, you change over time. Doesn't mean you're a completely different person. Well, I guess depending on the person. But, like, the way she acts isn't such a far-fetched and reach. It doesn't make her a mean, nasty person. She's not. But when it comes to what she loves to do and trying to save and protect the world and what she went through, who wouldn't be a little hardened by that? And we know at the end of the day that Jill is always going to get along with Chris and be best buds with him. And obviously we see the whole tag team in Death Island with her and Leon. And he's going to hit it off with Claire and Rebecca. I mean, they all love Jill and she loves them. But it's like people don't want a conflict at all. They just want everyone to just love everybody and be kumbaya 100% of the time and have no drama, no tension. It's like having a superhero movie where there's no villain and just see the superheroes living and being happy. Yeah, that won't get boring, out of the blue. And it's not a forced tension or drama either. It makes perfect sense, And not to mention, we see what Chris happens to him at the events after Resident Evil 7, where we see him in Resident Evil Village doing things off the grid and stuff, being a lot more unofficial about it and doing his own thing and being, really paranoid of what's going on. Obviously, what's going on at BSAA, but yet, whenever Jill, acts slightly aggressive at any point, or God forbid, actually curses, oh my God, it's a completely different person. It's not the person we grew up with. But if she was just the same person in Resident Evil 1 or Resident Evil 3, where they're just like they're kind of a little bit naive, whatever you want to call it, then people be crying, oh, they're boring, they're generic and stuff. It's like, they're damned if you do, and they're damned if you don't. It don't matter what she does. And I go back to that comment I said earlier that I referenced where that's probably why Capcom didn't want to do anything with her, because no matter what they did, people were going to go out of the woodworks to complain and cry about it. We should be happy to see Jill come back. We shouldn't be like this. I know not everyone's like this, but it's just, you hear the few, and it really annoys me. But at the end of the day, I always respect your opinions regardless, and that is my opinion. I want to hear your guys' opinion. Do you feel like Jill Valentine is the most overly criticized character in all Resident Evil? Let me know down below. But thank you very much for watching. And at the end of the day, I'm just happy to see Jill Valentine come back and whoop some ass nonetheless. But that is going to be it. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. And hopefully I can see you guys back on the next one. Thank you for watching. And I hope to see you all later. Peace.